Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my session on best practices for incorporating video in the online course environment. So before we get going, I want to give a quick moment to thank North Dakota State University and the NDSU Office of Teaching and Learning for the opportunity to speak with you today. There's so many great sessions in this conference, and I'm just honored and excited to be part of it. So with that, my name is Doug Tiedman. I'm an online instructional designer in the Office of Instructional Technology for Minot State University. Previous to working in Minot State, I worked as a web developer and have over 20 years of experience working with multimedia for online applications. So for this session, I'm going to be sharing with you the basic steps of planning, recording, editing, and completing instructional video to be used in online or face-to-face courses. We'll go over several different types of instructional videos, along with the benefits that these types of videos can bring to a course. Then we're going to go over certain ways that these videos can be created, and then share some ideas on how best to deliver and share the completed video files with your class. So with that, benefits to adding video to a course. So why do I want to add a video to my online course? I think we've all experienced a video in a course at one time or another, either by viewing it or actually making one and putting one into our course. But there are many benefits to utilizing the video in these courses. And the first one is increases the learner engagement. So when a video includes you, the instructor, in the presentation, it helps the learner to be more engaged with the content. This is especially important for asynchronous online courses where the students they're a little bit isolated. I mean, they're not. It's obviously not they don't see you on a day-to-day basis. So it's important to include yourself in that course, in a video. Videos give students another opportunity to learn and provided content in a different way. This content can supplement the reading texts or other content you have within the course. It's also a versatile tool for the instructor because the video, you can break it down into just audio, so students can use that audio while they're in the car or on the subway or wherever they're at. You can also take the transcript from that video and include that in the course. So they have a text option as well. So different options that go along with video. Videos allow students to rewatch and view different sections of the video again, giving the students an opportunity to learn at their own pace. Learners tend to understand a concept better when they're able to learn and to learn it on, able to learn it on their own. Studies have shown online course content that includes video is 83% more effective in helping learners remember the information at a later time. So when we're creating the instructional video, there's 7 steps we're going to go through to do that. And so the first one we're going to see, you'll see at the top there, is choose the type of video. So the common types of video that we usually will create are micro videos, tutorial videos, lecture recordings, and screencasts. Good to keep in mind that one type of instructional video isn't better or worse than another. It really depends on the type of content or the type of video that you're looking to create, the type of information you're trying to convey to the students. So the first one we mentioned is micro videos. These are short instructional videos that focus on teaching a single topic. These are usually no longer than 1 minute in length. And they're useful for a short overview of contents of a module, or can be used for a content module. So for instance, like learning objectives for a module, instead of just having the text written there, if you have a video of that, the video helps to convey to the students certain concepts that might be important in the learning objectives, because that'll come out when you're speaking naturally to them. And it's important not to include anything in the video that's not essential what's being learned. This helps to reduce cognitive load to the viewer. I guess a good example of micro video, I guess, if you're familiar with TikTok, those are usually, obviously they're meant to be micro videos. They're probably not very educational most of the time, but they can be. So if you're, for instance, if you're trying to show, putting together a car engine, you may want to break up videos into small 1-minute segments to showing just different parts of that engine. Just one example. Second type of video, I think we're all pretty familiar with, is a tutorial videos, and these are usually called how-to videos. They give a process that they do a step-by-step information about content, and it's a great source for these type of videos is YouTube. Over 70% of YouTube is made up of how-to videos. The third type we're talking about is lecture recordings, and these are a direct recording of a class lecture, and these may take place during a face-to-face class and are used in online class later, or it can be a recording that the instructor's created specifically just for that module or for that week of the lesson. When you're creating these type of videos in class to use later, you want to be aware that if you're recording students within that video, you want to make sure that you have permission from those students first to appear in that video, or you could fall into some FERPA violation issues. These recordings, naturally, since these lectures are a little bit longer, usually they require a little bit more time investment for the students. You may want to consider segmenting these videos, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, about that process. A PowerPoint that you have with a voiceover, that can be one example of a lecture video. And finally, come to screencasts. Screencasts are quick, informal videos composed primarily of screen recordings designed to teach someone to perform a task or share knowledge. And these are usually quick and informal, as I mentioned, and these can be a combination of lectures and tutorial videos. Usually, when you create these are they're not scripted, and using iPads can sometimes be a great source of that, because you have drawing tools with that, or otherwise it's usually done on the computer and with a webcam and microphone at the same time. All right, so now that we've decided on the type of video we want to create, we want to create a plan for that video, so to make it run as smooth as possible. And when planning out the video, the cognitive theory of multimedia learning, it can be useful and helpful when doing that. And that theory states that working memory has two channels for gathering and processing information: visual and auditory. And so the amount of memory storage for each of the channels are limited. But when they're used together, when you have video and audio combined for a certain subject, you can maximize that storage for both. So our goal is to try to, as I mentioned, use both those channels and get them equally balanced. Because otherwise, if you have more audio than visual or vice versa, the message might get lost. And so with that in mind, we want to try to design strategies within our video to take advantage of both channels, and with any concepts within the content of that video that we think are going to be a challenge to the learner. So the best way to save yourself time is to create a plan, and to create and most specifically create an outline or a storyboard. I have an example of a storyboard on the screen. I would guess most of you probably would just do an outline, and that's what I kind of did for this my presentation. Sometimes if you have, if you like to draw, that's a good way to do that. Sometimes if you have a lot of visuals, or there's going to be some kind of emotion or movement in your video, you may want to draw out just to give yourself an idea of what help you plan out things. With these online outlines, nothing says you can't make changes as you go, But having that plan, at least you have a good starting place, and to kind of know where you're going. It's also an effective way to plan out where images, slides, or other contents are going to be in your video. While in the planning stage, be sure to be mindful of how much info is going into the recording for the instructional video. Research shown that learner engagement drops off after about 6 minutes. So if you have a video that's like 20 minutes, you may want to, after about 5 minutes or so, you may want to insert something, kind of a break, like, pose a question to the students or something like that, and then you can come back. You can go back into that subject, but just keep in mind that you want to keep things moving, I guess. So now we have the plan created. We want to gather the equipment. We want to make sure that we have all equipment on hand before we start the recording, so so we don't have to stop and kind of get out of the mode of recording. That kind of harkens back to what type of video are we going to do, because we're going to use we want to use the type of equipment that's going to be most useful for that video. So if we're going to be doing a lecture, either by classroom or just an instructor, we probably want to use a handheld video camera or a smartphone. A lot of people don't realize their smartphone is probably the most expensive camera they walk around with. Most video cameras or smartphones, either they're iPhones or Android-based phones, have excellent video cameras, usually in 4K quality. And there's actually editing programs right on the phone that you could do. Otherwise, you can use that camera to transfer the video to a computer to do editing. But you want to make sure, using either of those, you want to make sure that you're using a tripod for that. And they make little connectors that'll connect to your phone that you can insert onto a tripod as well. That just helps to keep it stable and kind of help you set the scene. Certain situations you may need to use just holding the camera. If you're out in the field, depending if some kind of a science experiment, things like that, and you can hold the camera away from you as you're talking. That's kind of brings the student into it. And that's a little more convenient for you. If you're going to be doing a screencast, you're most likely going to be using your laptop or a desktop computer with a webcam and a microphone. And those for screencasts or PowerPoint videos. Now we have our equipment set up. We want to prepare and set up our props and make sure our set is ready. First off, you want to make sure you find a quiet environment that no one's going to interrupt you, or hopefully no one's going to interrupt you. You want to turn off any computer notifications, and I'm talking to you, Outlook, because Outlook has tons of notifications all day long that are useful to us, but not so useful when we're trying to do a screencast video and these notifications keep popping up. When I say the word props, now that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a physical item. It could also be like a demo, another program on your computer that you're going to switch to, and so you want to make sure those are set up and ready, so you don't have to stop the video to do that. And of course, so if you have some kind of fumbling or some kind of stoppage, then that you can always stop, and we can always start over and get reset, and you can take care of that in the editing process. So now we're ready to record. It's best to try to do the recording in one take. Even if you goof up the beginning, that's okay. Just take a short pause and just gather yourself and restart again. With that short pause, again, when we go in to edit the video, we can locate that area and we can remove that clip. So this way it just kind of helps you to keep going with it. So no big deal, just stop and restart. And once you get comfortable with editing, I also find it's easier to do recordings in little short bursts. Still to do them in one take, but kind of since you planned out which areas you want, instead of doing an entire 30-minute video, if you break it up into 10 minutes and then stop and go on to the next one, you can place those together, and that works out a little bit easier. Try to talk naturally during the video. Try to be not as unscripted as possible. Kind of just, I guess, talk the way you would in class. That's what your students are used to. It's just a little more friendly. Your students are going to feel more engaged and listen to you, versus if you're just reading off the script constantly. It just feels more natural. And try to make eye contact with the camera as much as possible. It's going to help with engagement with the students. This is what they're used to when you're lecturing in class. So now we have our video and it's all recorded and ready to go. And we want to go to do some editing. And editing is, again, we're going to be able to remove items we don't want. We're going to be able to add in other content like images or other video clips into our recording. And so we have different parts of the edit app, and there's no shortage of editing apps you can use, and some are free and some are rather expensive. Here at Minot State, I tend to use Adobe Premiere just because I know that program. There's other ones like Camtasia, and I'll show you that here in a moment. And that one is not too expensive, and it has a lot of pro features, but it's also really easy to learn and to get going. And so it can really be a useful tool for you in your creating videos. You could also use, if you have on the Windows machine, there's a video editor on there that you can certainly use, and that has some features. The same with on Macs, you can use iMovie or things of that nature. There's online ones as well. But I'm going to switch over to Camtasia and show you a little bit about that, just to show you these different parts of the editor. There we go. So now we're in Camtasia. And just a quick look here. You can see over here is it's called the media bin. That's where we're going to import our media into. And this area over here is the canvas. So as you're building the project, the canvas is where you're going to preview your work, preview your video. This area here allows you to, you can scale it, you can reposition it, you change the angle. Quite a different things you can edit with that. One note is everything that's in this canvas area that you see is going to be in the final video when we're done and we're ready to save it. Down below here is what we call the timeline. And these timelines are made up of layers or tracks. And so each track one track will be for audio, one will be for the video. And then as you add content, the tracks will increase above that, for the visual and for both video and audio. And right here is the playhead. So that's through the video, you can see it goes from left to right sequence, and it has is different timing scale there, seconds up to minutes, and so on. So if we bring in a video, get a better idea of that. So this is a video I created this winter when Minot State went over to ultra base navigation for Blackboard. And so you can see our video is now in the storage bin, and I can kind of preview through there to see that. Otherwise, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to pull it over into our canvas. And you can see over here, I have, just as mentioned, we can scale it. If we want to make it bigger or smaller, just kind of whatever our editing is going to call for there. We can set the size. The current size is 1920 by 1080 pixels, and that's HD quality. So now down below here in our timeline, now that I put this in the canvas, you'll see it's appeared in our timeline. And so as I move this playhead, you can see it's going to run through the video, and that's called scrubbing, or scrubbing through real quickly, and I can quickly get to a section of the video. Now, when I mentioned earlier about if you make a mistake in your video and you want to take a pause and then start over, when you look at this at the audio peaks and valleys here, you'll see when it's a long valley part, that means there's no audio, and that most likely could be because that's where we had a pause. So I can move my playhead to there, and if I want to remove that entire area, I can go to and do what's called a split, and I have two clips that are together, they're separated. And I can move the timeline to play it over a little bit to where I want it. And I can split that again. Right, and then I select this part here, and then I can just hit delete. Now you see I've removed that area, and now we have a space within our timeline. So when we scrub through, there's nothing there. So now I can go ahead and I could import in a photo or another clip, and I could just drag it down here to insert. Or if I want to get rid of that space altogether, I just move my clip together. Now I can also do what's called trimming. And so if I'm not sure if I'm going to need that section of the video again later. I might want to go back and put that back in. So what I can do is I can grab one end and I can just move it. And so I can trim the video, and then I can move it back. Or if so, I would decide later I actually need some of that back. I can move it back over and then slide that back over so you can see that that still is there. It's just hidden from you and hidden from the timeline. So that's kind of a non-destructive way to edit things, and knowing you can still replace that later. And again, we talked about the spacing. If I needed to have spacing, I just simply move that back over to roughly where I think it's going to be. I can tell by the time code up here how far the playhead is. So 1 minute 36 seconds, and then I can import in, and I can bring in another video. Now in this case, it's too big, but I can put this. It'll automatically create another track for us. So we're editing the video. Certain programs, and Camtasia included, allows you to add what's called signaling. And so signaling kind of draws back to, we talked about that multimedia theory, cognitive multimedia theory, where it's adding a visual cue to some audio. And so, example, if we want to signal a important area of the image, we can add in a cue, or what's called a cue or annotation, and that draws attention to that object. And so that kind of helps us with our goal to balance out the audio and video side to help learners remember that's important item. So if I go back to Camtasia, and so I have a certain section that I know I want to add a cue to, and go up to annotations. And you see they already have some preset made ones for me. So I can just drag that over. Quad on campus here, and I can add in a label to that. And then I'm also able to, oops, there we go. Kind of position it that way. And so according where I place that annotation in the timeline, it's going to appear, and then it'll disappear as needed. And I can increase the length of how long it lasts on the timeline, or I can decrease it. And so it just appears briefly and then disappears. So that's a nice way you can add in things like that to your video, because if you're not in front of the class and you're not tapping at the board, or telling them to remind them to really remember this part or point that part out. This video has to stand on its own, so that's an important tool to use for that. And I think we already talked. We talked earlier about segmenting being useful, and I just demonstrated segmenting, and so it's the chunking information into smaller, separated information, and so that allows students to engage in smaller. They don't have to watch such a long video. They can watch a shorter video, and you're able to control the flow of that new information. You can switch around the segments, to as needed. So now we have the video edited, and we've saved the video. It's time to save the video. We want to save that video into a web browser friendly file type, And the best file type to use for that is MP4, or called MPEG-4. That file type is recognized by all web browsers. You could open up a MP4 directly into a web browser from your computer if you needed to. So they're all universally recognized, so that's the safest file type to use. You want to use resolution size I mentioned before of 1920 by 1080. That's the HD quality. You can certainly create a 4K video and use that. It's going to be larger. You may want to downsize that, and you can do that within like editing programs like Camtasia. Another thing that's really important with the videos is we want to make sure that they're closed captions with accessibility. I really would rather had put that on the top of the screen because it's utmost importance. But usually when you save the video, that's one of the last things you do is you do the file or the closed captioning for that. And one thing there are different services you can do to create the transcripts to closed caption. One little trick you could use is if you went directly to, if you're putting your videos into YouTube, I have this in our YouTube account, you could go to subtitles and select that video. Oops. We can go to edit, and you can see that it's created the transcripts for us. And then right now it's set up in the timeline. If I want to edit that or make changes to it, because it's not going to be perfect, there's going to be certain things that's off. So we want to make the edits. We want to make the quality of that closed caption as best as possible as we can. So we edit the video. And I can go through here, and I can, right here I see things aren't capitalized. So I can change that right there. Or I can go ahead and I can select the entire text. I can bring it to Word and do all my spell checks and editing in there. And then I can save that as a text file. I can bring it back in and save over this text. And it's actually, YouTube will actually set the timings for me, and it works really well. And finally, one thing that I usually like to do with videos is do some kind of file compression. And there's certain editing programs have that for you. Probably two of the best ones I know of is it's called Source and Squeeze, and Handbrake. And Handbrake's the one I use quite a bit, and that's actually a free program that you can install, and it works on either Mac or Windows. You can go and you can bring in a video, and I can tell to web app optimize, and I can even crank down the audio, because usually the audio is ridiculously large, like bring it down to 96 hertz, and then dimensions of the video as well. And then I go ahead and I click start, and it's going to do a run through. And what it's going to do is it's going to compress my video, and it's going to the magic thing is you hardly notice the difference. If I go to, I have example of ones that I've already run over video. So the first one over here was directly saved from Camtasia, and that one had a file size, you can see here, of 104 megabytes. So after running it through Handbrake, I can get that file size down to 17.9 megabytes, or basically 18 megabytes. So after doing that compression, then that's when I would want to upload that to either YouTube or another online area where then I'm going to have that video. And so that takes up, it's going to upload much quicker, and it's going to take up less storage space, which is more important day by day because storage is becoming very expensive. And also with the smaller video, it'll also play much quicker on your computer as well. So just keep that in mind if you want to have a little more quicker uploads for your videos. With that, that's all I have to talk to you about today with video. I thank you very much for attending the session. I hope the information and best practices will be useful for you in your video efforts. Adding video to online courses adds learner engagement to the subject matter and allows learners the chance to master the presented materials at a pace that's right for them. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please let me know.